RBWM paper, all the units module wise. So today we have the unit 23 of module D, importance of wealth management. So when we talk about wealth management, there are various sources or different types of wealth that are acquired by the customers during their lifetime. Then it is also important to manage their wealth well, right? So wealth management is an investment advisory services, and mostly to cater to the needs of the affluent classes, the retail banks are also offering them. So, a professional service provided by wealth managers, which include investment planning, accounting, tax planning, portfolio, all of these things. Now, the banks are also offering these wealth management services. All right. So, we can summarize the wealth management services in three stages. Wealth management is an investment advisory services which combines the other financial services to address the needs of the affluent clients. All the advisory services starting from tax planning, retirement planning, estate, portfolio, accounting. Then a wealth management advisor is a high level professional who manages an affluent client's wealth holistically, typically for one set fee. And this set fee is quite high, so only the affluent classes can avail them. And the service is usually appropriate for wealthy individuals that have a broad array of diverse needs. Also, they do not have enough time or enough knowledge to manage their wealth, how they can invest their surplus wealth, how they can manage their taxes to get the maximum benefits of deductions, how they can manage their estate well, where can they make benefits, what should be their portfolio. So, wealth management involves investment, assets, cash, financial planning, trade, and so on. All right. So, it is an advice, investment advice, right? So, there are certain steps or aspects of wealth management. The process of wealth management, which starts with assessing the current financial situation of the client, then identifying the financial goals. After that, the wealth managers they design a customized solution to achieve the goals. They implement the financial strategies into the plan, and finally they monitor the results and review the plans. Right? So we have asset allocation management, tactical management, and diversified management. So these are the stages. First will be to meet with the client to collect the information on assets, risk tolerance, and investment restrictions. Then analyze the data collected to create a portfolio and derive an investment strategy. Third will be to evaluate the present strategy derived before the client for review and adjust the plan. Fourth will be to implement, and fifth will be to monitor the effects. So this will secure the financial health for the customer, right? And then we also said that the asset allocation, tactical management, and diversified management are the things that wealth management deals with. Now, when we talk about the wealth management products and services, traditionally customers have been investing large amounts of money. However, other products are also offered, like an alternative asset, which can be art and antiques, precious metals, fine wines, rare stamps, which are not found in the standard portfolio, right? So it can include a rare art or coins, rare stamps. So people they like to collect these stamps, coins, sport cards, and other collectibles. Then we also have the bonds. Different types of bonds are there. Bonds are the fixed income instruments, right, which are derived from a loan forwarded by an investor to a borrower. So the issuer promises to pay a specific interest for the life of the bond and the principal amount on the maturity. So there are different types of bonds and bond markets. We have the government bonds, corporate bonds, and the tax-free bonds. And there are the different types of bonds like the convertible bond, the government bonds. Government bonds are also various types like the fixed rate, floating rate, sovereign gold bonds. We also have the municipal bonds in India. So these are the different types of bonds. Government bonds, treasury, corporate, convertible, zero coupon bonds, inflation linked, high yield, mortgage backed, floating rate and callable bonds. To study all of these things in detail will require much more time. For that, you can join the course and avail it. For example, the convertible bond gives the purchaser a right or an obligation to convert the bond into shares of the issuing company. Then the government bonds, which are issued by the central government as well as the state government, and they range from a period of 5 to 40 years. They can be fixed rate, where a fixed rate is applicable, and a lock in period is also there. Also, we have the floating rate bonds, which have a variable interest rate based on the periodic changes. Sovereign gold bonds are also issued, and the interest that is generated is tax free. Inflation index bonds, where the index like a wholesale price index or a consumer price index will be used. Government of India's savings bonds have also been launched in the year 2018. Bonds have a call or a put option. Zero coupon bonds that do not earn interest. Instead, the returns by the difference between the issuance price and the redemption value, right? So there are the different kinds of bonds. Then we have insurance. What is the contract of insurance between the insured and the person or the insurance company? Then there are the different types of insurance policies like life insurance, health insurance, disability, auto or vehicle, home insurance, and travel insurance as well. So these insurance protect our family in the unforeseen situations like death and accidental. The life insurance can be of term life insurance, which is one of the types of life insurance, which provides a lump sum benefit to the nominee of the insured person after the death of the insured. Health insurance in terms of surgical and medical expenses. Disability will cover the physical disability for a longer period. Auto insurance, vehicles, it insures our vehicles against the damages and accidents. And home insurance against any damages like the structural damage, fire, earthquake, etc. So protecting or safeguarding the loss is done through insurance, right? So these are the different types of insurance. Other than that, travel insurance facilities are also provided, right? Then we have mutual funds, wherein pooling in of the funds from different interested investors, and then they are invested in securities like stocks, bonds, money market, or any such assets, right? According to the mutual requirement needs of the investors. There are different types of mutual funds as well, like the equity mutual fund, debt mutual fund. We have the balanced mutual funds, open-ended and closed-ended. We also have the SIP and the systematic withdrawal plan that are available. Real estate services are another. Real estate portfolio management services are also there. Real estate services, the portion which is allocated to real estate, right? Which also generate enough funds. So the Real Estate Investment Trust is an organization that owns and operates the real estates in order to generate the regular flow of income. So this is also a product. We also have retirement planning as a service to achieve the goal of the retirement. The scope is focused on advising the solutions aimed at retirement security, in addition to cover their life risk or to ensure better returns, right? Then we have strategic business strategy. Again, the wealth managers support the persons in the optimization of their assets projects by helping them to manage their taxation and their savings. Auditing, wealth auditing is also provided. Also, finally, we have will writing. The person, the customer would like to create a will for the people they're leaving behind after they die, or after their demise. For example, the fixed deposits will go to them, or the real estate, or the stock, or the mutual funds investment, all the worldly possessions, how they will be distributed. So it is a legal declaration of a person with respect to his properties and assets, which they desire to be distributed amongst the eligible inheritors after their death. So these are the various services which are provided under wealth management. All right. So the different types of mutual funds: open, close, interval, growth, dividend, and others. Now, what are the benefits of wealth management? It helps in creation of a sound financial plan. The wealth management services help the investors calculatedly and systematically create their corpus, because the wealth managers, they have the professional skills that help them to understand the client requirement. Elimination of financial stress. Again, wealth advisors, they have a deep understanding of the financial uncertainties, which help us to prioritize our financial decisions. And personalized services, because the wealth managers, they know there's no one size fits all criteria. So they provide a customized plan. So wealth management is important because without properly managing our finances, we can cast ourselves into a world of trouble. Also, incorrect management of our money leads to financial burden and debt. So the wealth management plays a very major role in handling the financial matters. A person can get a clear layout of how to invest her or his money, creating a sound financial plan. And the advisory, it ensures that the money invested keeps compounding through the various strategies. So this is the whole RBWM paper, and in this series we are summarizing all the units from all the modules, and today we have the unit 24 from module D, which is investment management. So before we start with the session, make sure that you share the video, you subscribe to the channel so that you do not miss any of the updates. These are very important from your exam preparation. All right. So when we talk about investment, it is a source or additional source wherein the people, individuals, they're sacrificing their present consumption to get a return in the future. Basically, investment is what you save from your income, that is what you're going to invest. Now, individuals or institutions, mostly we do not have enough knowledge about how we can make the correct investments according to our needs and requirements. That is where the professionals, they step in. The investment managers, investment bankers, portfolio managers, these are the professionals that help us allocate or invest our surplus funds in areas that will get us the maximum returns, right? So, when we talk about investments, there are certain elements of investment. There are four elements of investment that are important: return, which can be in the form of a regular income, interest, dividend, rent, or any other form, right? So the objective of any type of investment is to derive return. Also, it is the increase in the value of the investment. Let's say the difference between the selling price and the buying price of assets. Another element is risk. Risk means normally more the risk, higher is the expected profit or the expected return. It is the basic attribute of investment, right? Risk means the variability in return because of loss of capital or non-payment of income. Then the third element is safety. It means that the investors get back at least their original principal on maturity with no loss in the value and hindrance. And finally, liquidity, which means that the investor can sell their investment in the market as the need arises without incurring much transaction cost, less energy, as well as time. So the objective of investment will be maximizing the return and minimizing the risk. also maintaining certain level of liquidity. All right. So investment management, when we refer, it can be said as the handling of the financial assets, not only buying and selling them, but also devising a short or a long-term strategy for acquiring and disposing of the portfolio holdings. So the basics of investment management is that it refers to the handling of financial assets and other investments by the professionals for their clients in return for a fee. Then the clients can be individuals or institutional investors. So the investment management includes devising the strategies and executing the trades within a financial portfolio. When we talk about the investment banks, then for the corporates or institutions, they are providing the various portfolio according to the requirements of the institutions or the individuals. Then when we talk about the steps in investment management, we first need to decide the investment goals, which will differ from one investor to another. One might think about maximizing the return and minimizing the risk. Others might think that they want to undertake more risk so that they can also have more profit in the future. Second step will be analysis of the security to find the intrinsic values of the security, to devise or select the best securities as per the needs of the investors. Then we construct the portfolio, which is a blend of the securities designed to meet the investor's primary goal of investment. And a well diversified portfolio is comparatively less risky than holding a single security. Then, after we implement it, we evaluate the performance of the portfolio and revise if the objectives of the investment are not served by the current portfolio. So, these are the various steps. When we talk about investment banking, so it is a specific division of banking or financial institution that serves the government, corporations, and institutions by providing underwriting and merger and acquisition advisory services. So, investment banking basically either underwriting services or mergers and acquisition advisory services. So, the investment bank, they act as intermediaries between the investors who have money to invest and corporations who require capital to grow and run their business. So, investment banking is different from portfolio or investment management. In the portfolio management, we are just managing the assets for the client. In investment banking, what we are doing, we are acting as the intermediaries between the funds, the institutions which are having a deficit of fund and those that are having a surplus and they need to invest. Right? So, investment banking typically covers two key areas: the merger and acquisition advisory, assisting in the negotiation and structuring of the merger or acquisition, and underwriting services, raising the capital through selling stocks or bonds. So, any institution or corporate at any point they might require the creation of capital. So, that creation of capital can be either through merger and acquisition or underwriting services, and both of these are provided by the investment bank. So, underwriting, capital raising, and underwriting groups work between investors and companies, right, for new capital. Merger and acquisition, here advisory roles for both buyers as well as sellers of the business. Sales and trading, equity research, and asset management, these are the full service investment bank, the off services that they offer. So, underwriting is the process of raising capital through selling the stocks or bonds to the investors on behalf of corporations when the business need money, right? And merger and acquisition, we already know, if two companies they want, they can merge and then they can carry on their services. However, when we talk about investment banking and investment management, these are different. Also, investment banking is different from portfolio management. Investment managers, they help the clients reach their investment goals by managing their money. They are just managing their money. But investment bankers, they help with the corporate, the finance needs such as raising funds or capital, right? So they offer services like debt issuance, new securities underwriting, mergers and acquisitions, and IPOs. But investment managers, they provide services like financial statement analysis, portfolio allocation, such as a proper mix of the bonds and stocks, equity research, buy and sell recommendation, financial planning, estate and retirement planning. So when we refer to portfolio management, it is about managing the client's investment, whereas investment banking is all about raising the capital for the clients. This is the main difference between portfolio management and investment banking. So the basic difference between the two is that in the case of investment management or portfolio management, clients already have the money and the manager needs to manage that money or their assets. But in case of investment banking, the clients, they do not have money and they need to raise capital. So the banking professional are going to raise the capital for supporting their clients. So this is the main difference. Again, the objectives are very different of investment banking and portfolio management. For the portfolio management, capital appreciation, maximizing the returns on investment, risk optimization, allocating the resources optimally. Portfolio management will be required by those high net worth income individuals to manage their investment, to rebalance their investment portfolio, who have limited knowledge about the investment market, right? So, asset allocation, diversification, rebalancing, all of these things are there. I hope the difference between investment management and investment banking is clear, right? There are the different types of portfolio management, the steps for portfolio management, advantages we have already seen, continuous monitoring, risk control, flexibility. However, there are certain disadvantages as well because higher capital investment, the limit has been set of a minimum rupees 50 lakh to start investing with the portfolio management. Higher cost, the management fees may vary between 2 to 2.5%, and there is no performance guarantee. However, when we are looking for the portfolio management services, we will see the track record of the manager, the due diligence of the manager, the investment strategy, fee arrangement, and customer support. So, all of these things are the important provisions or areas that will be referred to. This is the JAIIB Foundation series for the May 2025 cycle. And in this series, we are covering the RBWM paper, all the units module wise. And today we have the unit 25 from module D, that is tax planning. All the previous videos are already there on the YouTube channel. If you haven't yet seen them, make sure that you watch them because these are very important for your exam preparation. They're going to give you a complete idea regarding the syllabus, all the topics, and the units. All right. So, when we talk about tax planning, there are different taxes that we need to pay. The tax structure in India can be divided into the direct taxes and indirect taxes. Direct taxes are those which are levied on the income or wealth of the person and it is paid directly by the person to the government, right? The incidence and impact cannot be shifted in the case of the direct tax. It falls on the same person. The burden again falls on the same person. The income attracts more income tax, so it is progressive in nature. The burden will increase as our income increases. Tax evasion is possible in the direct taxes, and inflation, the direct tax helps in reducing the inflation, cannot be shifted. Examples are income tax, wealth tax, capital gains, security transaction, and the perquisite tax. On the other hand, we have the indirect taxes, which are levied on the goods and services of a person and is collected from the buyers by another person. So the seller is collecting the tax from the buyer and paying it to the government. So the government is not getting the taxes directly but indirectly. That is why it is known as an indirect tax. The incidence and impact falls on the different person. The tax is imposed on the seller, but it is collected from the consumers and it is paid by the seller, right? And the rate of tax is flat on all individuals. Doesn't matter, even if more income individuals they are buying the good or the service or less income individual, they still have to pay the same level of tax, right? Earlier there were many types of taxes, indirect taxes. Now they all have been subsumed under the goods and service tax, under the one tax, one nation, one tax regime. So this is the main difference between direct and indirect taxes. Now let us see the important definitions under the tax structure. So, in the recent budget, also, you would have seen that the terms assessment year, financial year, and previous year have been used to simplify the computation. The assessment year, apart the in place of that, the tax year will be used to make it more simple for the common person to understand. But in our syllabus, the older terms are given, so we are going to study them. The financial year is the year in which the income is earned. Financial year is the year in which we are earning the income. And assessment year is going to be the next year in which the income is assessed to tax and all the taxes are paid as well as the tax returns are filed. For example, the income tax rules and slab rates which are applied for the assessment year 2020 to 23 will be the same as the rules for the financial year 2021-22, right? So when we are talking about the previous year in which the tax is calculated or computed, then the next year will be the assessment year in which we are going to pay that tax. So the assessment year during which a person is taxed on the money or income that they received from a in a given financial year. The assessment year is the period from April 1 to March 31st. So in this assessment year, the person is going to file the income tax return, and the year immediately after the financial year is known as the assessment year. I hope the distinction between the financial year and the assessment year is clear, right? For example, the income a person earns from 1st of April 2021 to 31st of March 2022, right? This is simply known as the financial year. And this assessed income or the earned income will be taxed in the next year, that is 2023. All right. So for the, let's say, scenario that we took from 1st April 2020 to 31st March 2021, the assessment year is going to be 1st April 2021 to 31st March 2022, right? So financial year in which we are earning the income, and assessment year, the next year in which we are paying the taxes on the income which is earned. So the period where the income is earned is the financial year, and the assessment year follows the financial year, right? All right. And the previous year or financial year terms are used interchangeably, right? Interchangeably. Then, for the computation of income tax, the residential status of the entity is seen, not the individual citizenship, but the residential status. So, the individual tax assessee can be a resident not ordinarily resident, RNOR, and a non resident Indian. So the resident should be any person who is staying in India for a year, in a year for 182 days or more, plus they are earning income in India, right? Then if we are talking about the resident, not ordinarily resident, so he has been a resident of India in at least 2 out of the 10 years in the immediately preceding years. That will be a resident, not ordinary resident. And NRI, that is not satisfying the eligibility of resident or the not ordinary resident. All right. So when we talk about the taxability, in case of the resident, the individual will be taxed, will be charged to tax in India on his global income as well. That is income which is earned in India as well as income which is earned outside India. And in the case of non-resident or not ordinary resident, the income which is earned only in India, that will be charged, right? So no tax is applicable on their foreign income. So this is the difference between the resident and the non-resident or the not ordinarily resident Indian. Now there are the different tax slab rates. There was the old tax regime and the new tax regime. But now with the new budget in this year, changes have been made in the tax slabs. Let us see what is the difference between the old tax and the new tax regime. The tax rates in the new tax regime is same for all the categories of individuals. That is, individuals and the Hindu undivided family up to the age of 60 years, senior citizens above 60 years up to 80 years, and the senior citizens above 80 years. So, no increased basic exemption limit will be available to the senior and the super senior in the new tax regime. This is the main difference from the old tax regime. Then, individuals with the net taxable income less than will be eligible for the tax rebate, right? And the basic exemption limit for the NRIs is 2.5 lakh irrespective of the age. Additional health and education cess at 4% will be added to the income tax liability, and surcharge that is applicable as per the tax rates have also been given in our syllabus. So when we compute the total income, we are going to include the income from salary, income from the house property or the rental income, profits and gains, capital gains, both long term and short term, and income from other sources as well. Then, when we talk about the new tax regime, so the taxpayers have an option. Either they can pay the taxes at the lower rates given the new tax regime, but they have to forego certain permissible exceptions and deductions that are available under the old tax, or they can continue to pay the taxes under the existing tax rates and they can still avail the rebates and exemptions, but paying the higher tax rate. All right. So the new tax regime and the old tax regime are very important. You should know what are the differences between them. Then whether the individual should select the old tax regime or the new tax regime, the conditions that will be considered are also important. Then if we talk about the capital gains tax, this tax arises on the profit or gains from the sale of a capital asset. It is also considered as an income. For example, if you own a house and you sell it, then you are going to make certain capital gains in that. So you need to make or pay the capital gains tax. So the capital gains tax is of two types. We have the short-term capital gains tax and the long-term capital gains tax, right? So if a house property is a capital asset as per the income tax guidelines, then the gain or the loss will be filed in the income tax return. If the asset is held for a period of less than 36 months, or let's say less than a term, which is termed as the short term, then it will be known as the short term capital asset. If longer than that, it is known as the long term capital assets. Board, this is the JAIIB Foundation series for May 2025 cycle. And in this series, we are covering the RBWM paper, all the units module wise. Today, we are going to cover the unit 26 from module D, which is other financial services which are provided by the bank. So, in this module, we have seen the various services like importance of wealth management, investment management, and tax planning. Now, other services or the third party products or para banking like mutual fund business, insurance products, or cross selling, depository services, factoring, agency business. All of these services are also provided by the banks to their customers, right? So before we start, make sure that you like this video and you subscribe to the channel so that you do not miss any of these updates. We are having these sessions on a daily basis for your exam preparation. All right, so let us start. So, when we talk about distribution of third party products, banks are permitted to offer these services by the RBI by acting as a corporate agent without any risk participation. The most important point when we talk about the third party products that the customers might need, like insurance, investment in mutual funds, or other services like broking or demat services, right? So banks, they can provide these services but without any risk participation. So this offers a benefit not only to the customers, they do cover the entire needs spectrum of the customers. It also has benefits for the banks. Why? Because it improves the fee-based income as they receive commission for acting as the corporate agent for these services. And the concept of selling products other than the banking products is called para banking. So if the banks are selling an insurance policy to the customer or they're offering the mutual fund, then it is known as distribution of third party products. All right. So when we talk about mutual fund business, so we know it is the collective investment that pools the savings from a number of investors who share a common financial goal. Then this mutual fund pools, which are created by the asset management company, they are going to invest it in the capital market instruments such as shares, debentures, or other securities. All right. So the product innovations have also happened with one mutual fund launching a co-branded debit card for withdrawal up to specified limits as well. So the banks and the mutual fund companies, they enter into a co-branding agreement. So it provides a maximization of comfort for the customer, bank, as well as the mutual fund, because these tie-ups are structured in a manner that all the three parties get benefit. So what happens in the mutual fund? The investors, they pool in their money, then the fund managers, they invest the money in securities. The profit which is generated is passed back to the investors based or accordance with the quantum of money that is invested by them. So the investors are known as the unit holders and the managers can be the asset management company that are registered with the SEBI, right? So professional management, diversification, liquidity, simplicity, all of these benefits are provided. Now, there are different types of mutual funds. We have the equity, fixed income, and money market. Again, these can be open ended funds that do not have a maturity date or closed ended funds which run for a specific period. Interval funds are also there, which allows to purchase the units only during a particular pre-decided time period, right? So mutual fund business is provided by banks for a fee-based distribution model. All right. Then we have the insurance business by the banks. This we have seen in the previous chapters as well. The various types of insurance policies like the term life insurance, whole life insurance, endowment plans, retirement plans, unit linked, and child plans as well. Then we have the non life insurance policies as well. So, banks, when they are providing the insurance policies with the object of increasing the insurance penetration using the entire network of bank branches, the finance minister announced in 2013-14 that banks will be permitted to act as the insurance brokers. Accordingly, the apex institution IRDA has formulated and notified the IRDA licensing of banks as insurance brokers regulation 2013, which allows the banks to take up the business of insurance broking departmentally, right? Departmentally. So the banks are allowed to undertake the insurance business. They are actually not allowed to undertake the insurance business with risk participation. Like if any person wants to get insurance on their vehicle, machinery, livestock. So the insurance business by the banks can be done with risk participation through the subsidiary or joint venture. And the banks, if they are undertaking without any risk participation, then it can be done departmentally, right? So there are options to the available to the bank, right? So marketing and distribution of the life policies is done. Also, group insurance products are offered. Distribution of non-life insurance products is also undertaken by the banks. Then we have certain social security insurance schemes, which again, a very important role is played by the banks. So there are two schemes, the Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, which provides life insurance cover for death due to any reason. So it is a 1 year cover which can be renewed from year to year, and it will be offered and administered through the LIC and other life insurance companies that are willing to offer this product. If we talk about the scope of coverage, then the participants, the account holders of the participating banks in the age group of 18 to 50 will be eligible. Primary KYC will be done for the bank account. Then the benefits will be rupees 2 lakhs uh, payable to the member. Then premium will be rupees 436 per annum per member. All right. Then termination of assurance if the premium is not paid or closure of account, right? Then another scheme is the Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana, which offers accidental death as well as disability cover for the death or disability on account of an accident. The Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, death due to any reason. Suraksha Bima Yojana, death or disability on account of accident. Right? So the scope of coverage 18 to 70 years. Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, coverage was 18 to 50. Suraksha Bima Yojana, 18 to 70. Then the benefits on death, the sum insured is rupees 2 lakhs. Total and irrecoverable loss, 2 lakhs. And total and irrecoverable loss of one eye or one hand or foot, then 1 lakh. The premium that will be paid will be rupees 20 per annum per member. Again, auto debit, bank account, all of these things are there. Another service which is offered by the banks is cross selling. Cross selling. So almost all the banks, including those with the public sector, are following the standard strategies with a slew of housing, auto, education, and consumer loans, and they add volume to their real asset book. So what they're doing, the banks, they are selling the main product to the existing customer, and the buyer is also enticed to buy another product which is related to the primary purchase. We have studied about cross selling, so it provides the benefit of increased revenue for the bank. All right, So that is cross-selling. So new or additional asset, right? So cross-selling increases the revenue for the bank and the satisfaction of the customer as well. All right. So this is there. Then depository services are also offered by the bank with a view to adding value to the banking services and making available the numerous benefits of depository. Some banks have been offering the DMAT or depository services through both the depositories. Registered depositories are the NSDL and the CDSL Limited, right? So depository is a provider of the facility for holding or transacting securities like shares, debentures, bonds, etc. in the book entry form. So the physical securities can be converted into the electronic form by the way of dematerialization. That is DMAT, right? And the depository participant is an agent of the depository, the agent of the depository, and it is registered as a depository participant with SEBI. So the financial institutions, banks, stockbrokers, custodians, these are specified to be registered as the depository participants, right? So they can offer the facilities like opening a demat account, dematerialization, rematerialization, maintain a record of holding in electronic form, facilitating the transfer of securities, and so on, right? Then we have another service which is portfolio management. Portfolio means the total holdings of securities belonging to any person. So it is an investment advisory discipline that incorporates financial planning, investment portfolio management, and a number of aggregated financial services, right? So professionals are providing us management for our diversified portfolio. And portfolio management services means a service offered by the portfolio manager as defined in the SEBI Portfolio Managers Regulations of 1993. So the banks undertaking the PMS departmentally can perform these advisory services and management services to the customers. And we have already discussed the wealth management, portfolio management, and investment management. All right. Then we have the factoring services for the management of the receivables. What happens in factoring? A financial institution, for example, a bank, they act as the factor. They buys the accounts receivable of a company, that is the client, and pays the amount after retaining a small portion. So if the company, any company A, has agreed to provide certain goods to B, but B has said that we are going to make the payment after 6 months, right? So this receivable will be taken by A to a bank who is going to act as the factor. They will pay on account of the receivable to A, and then they can recover the amount after 6 months from the buyer who is B. Again, factoring can be recourse or on non-recourse basis. Recourse basis can be if B does not pay, then the bank can take recourse to A. Or non-recourse means if the B does not pay, then bank cannot take recourse to A. All right. So this is the factoring service which is provided by the banks, and government has also issued the guidelines for the MSMEs for the quick conversion of the trade receivables. We have studied about the TREADS platform. It is an initiative by RBI to facilitate the MSME receivable payments from the corporates. So the main objective is to address the critical needs of the MSMEs, that is the twin issue of promptly encashing the receivables and eliminating the credit risk. So the MSME sellers, corporate and other buyers, including the government departments, then the PSUs and the financer will be the direct participants in the trade. So it is a very important policy. Again, we have other agency business like sale of sovereign gold bonds is also undertaken by the banks. Then pension services are also provided like under the Atal pension yojana, right? So that is all.